Hello, algebra students. Today we're going to solve equations. Instead of by factoring, all of the polynomial equations that we were working with were quadratics. That just means that they had x squareds or whatever variable it was squared. We have another way to solve them because not every single one that we give you will always be factorable. Sometimes we'll end up getting things that would give us decimal kind of answers. So we have to have another way to solve this. What we're going to use is called the quadratic formula. When we look at an equation where we've got an x squared, so we've got ax squared plus bx plus c, and then it's got to be equal to 0. Just like when we factored and used the zero product property, this one also has to be equal to 0. It does say over here, oh yeah, I'm not going to try to trick you and make the first term go away because the a was equal to 0. But when we have our equations, and today every one of them will be in the right order, the number that's in front of the x squared, that's going to be the a. The number that's in front of the regular x, that's the b. And then the number that's all by itself, the constant, is going to be c. When we start every single problem, we are going to write down a equals b equals c equals. Now, this is the quadratic formula. And I know that it might look intimidating, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to memorize it, and you're going to sing it. I know that you might not want to, and I know that some of you right now are watching this video and thinking, Mrs. Kempy's crazy. There is no way I'm going to sing this formula. I'm telling you, if you sing it, you will remember it. Every year, the students that we have at Ben Franklin that sing this formula remember it the next year when they're at SPASH. So when we sing this, and you can look up, there are so many videos out there. This goes with Pop Goes the Weasel, so you can have like the scary, creepy Jack in the Box that you wind up, and then it pops up at the end, kind of like an elf. But here's how this goes. And I'm sorry, my voice is not great right now. You got to put up with it. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. all over 2a. That's what we're looking for. You got to sing that, and you're going to practice it. And I'm telling you that every single problem I start today, we're going to write that equation down, and I'm going to sing it every time. And I'm sorry that you're going to have to hear my voice singing it, but you should be singing it repeatedly. You should sing it every time you write it down, and you will remember it, I promise. So if this is my equation, I'm going to start by finding a, b, and c. The a is the number in front of the x squared. I don't see a number there. Well, we know that if there's no number there, it's really a 1. The b is the number that's in front of the x. Be careful here. It's not just a 5. It's really a negative 5. And the c is the number that's all by itself, the constant. And that's also a negative. You're going to need a calculator when we're doing this. This is not like, oh, I can do it all in my head. Nope, you need a calculator. And different teachers teach this a little differently, like in terms of typing the whole thing into your calculator or just doing parts. I think in a video, we're just going to do this in parts and just ask you to write stuff down in the in-between steps. So our quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, a couple of things to be careful about. When I said all over 2a, notice that my fraction bar went all the way underneath the c. Really, it should come up a little closer to my equal sign here because it should be under the negative in front of the b. The square root sign has to go all the way to the c. And when I sing this, I do say negative b. However, it really is the opposite of b. It just doesn't fit the song as well. So it's the opposite of b. So in this case, b was negative 5. I'm going to be changing that. Whatever the sign is, I change it. So this is going to be a positive 5. First step is we're just going to substitute all of our stuff into the right place. So we're going to get x equals, instead of this negative b, the opposite of b, the opposite of negative 5 is going to be 5. Plus or minus, I know that's not real familiar to us, but that's okay. Square root, b squared. I am going to slow this down and write every single part out right now. Minus 4 times, the a was 1, and the c was a negative 14. So I want to extend my square root sign. I want my fraction bar to go all the way from the equal sign, but not under the equal sign, to the end of the square root part. And then 2 times, there's my a. That's just a substitution. Somehow I got an extra parenthesis in there around the 1. Pretend that's just one thick parenthesis right there. So 5 plus or minus, let's figure out what's going on in here. Negative 5 squared is not negative 25. If you type in on most calculators, negative 5 and squared, it'll tell you it's negative 25. But you need parentheses, just like I wrote parentheses. This is negative 5 times negative 5. That's going to be positive 25. Now, that minus 4ac, I'm going to do that. Because now I've got negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4. Negative 4 times a negative 14. They're the same sign, so that's going to be a positive 56. And 2 times 1 is 2. Inside the parentheses, 56 plus 25 is 81. I haven't done anything with the square root yet. All I've done is just simplified that. But we know the square root of 81. That's just 9. The reason for the plus or minus after the 5 is because the square root of 81 is really 9 or negative 9. Because 9 times 9 is 81. Negative 9 times negative 9, also 81. So I'm going to have x equals 5 plus or minus 9 all over 2. Now again, in your calculator, you have to be careful. You have to be the smart one in the relationship. If you just type in, because we're going to do this 2 times. We're going to do once with the addition sign for the 5 plus 9, and we'll do it once with the subtraction. But if you just type in, all in one step, 5 plus 9 divided by 2, your calculator thinks it's so smart, it's going to do 9 divided by 2 first because of order of operations, and then it'll add the 5. But that fraction bar really is a grouping symbol. So on your calculator, you could just do 5 plus 9 equals, so that's 14, and then divide by 2. That'll be 7. Now the other number, I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to use the subtraction part. So 5 minus 9, which is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. We get 2 answers most of the time when we do these kind of problems. That's the quadratic formula. We just need to practice it a bunch. I feel like I skipped one, but I didn't. This time, I'm going to have my a, b, and c. The a is the number in front of the x squared, so that's 4. b is 12. c is 8. All positives this time. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The opposite of 12 would be a negative 12. And then the b squared would be 12 squared. I know that some people want to jump right in and say 144 right there. And I'm okay with that. I usually do that too. But I want to show the substitution for right now. The a was 4 and the c was 8. 2 times 4. So I have negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared, I said, was 144. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 8 is 128. 2 times 4 is 8. None of this is really that difficult in terms of the math that's going on, especially knowing that you can use a calculator, but you have to take your time. You have to be really careful on this. So in my square root, 144 minus 28, or 128, is 16. And the square root of 16, we know that. That's 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. But again, the plus or minus, I'm going to have to do this once with addition and once with subtraction. Those of you that feel pretty comfortable with your calculator, you could type in parentheses, negative 12 plus 4, and then outside of the parentheses, divide by 8. And then, after you get that answer, arrow up, change the addition to subtraction. You can get it that way also. but I'm going to do this kind of more in my head on this part. Negative 12 plus 4 would be negative 8. Then negative 8 divided by 8 would be negative 1. When I do negative 12, I'm sorry, minus 4, that's negative 16. Negative 16 divided by 8 would be negative 2. So those are our two answers. By the way, today we're going to be getting really nice answers, which means that honestly we could have been factoring these, but we want to practice this where we get nice answers for the first day. So I have A is going to be 2, B is going to be a negative 3, and C is going to be a negative 65. C equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So the opposite of B, the opposite of negative 3 would be a positive 3. Then I'll have a negative 3 squared, notice that I'm putting that in parentheses, minus 4 times 2 times a negative 65. 2 times 2. Negative 3 squared, negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Then I would look at this and say, especially when I've got something like a negative 65, I would do a keep, change right there. Because negative 4 times 2 would be a negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 65 is going to be a positive 520. Now, when I add those numbers inside the radical, I get 529, which is a perfect square. Most people probably aren't going to recognize that, and in fact, I just did that on my calculator because I didn't know what it was offhand. But the square root of 529 is 23. So if I have 3 plus 23, that's 26. 26 over 4. I could simplify that and get 13 over 2. That answer's fine. I could divide that and get 6.5. To be honest, most people are just going to be dividing these on your calculators. You should get a decimal answer there. 3 minus 23 would be a negative 23. And negative 23 divided by 4 would be negative 5. Sorry. This one looks a little different because I'm missing the middle term. I don't have a B in this case. But when that happens, that just means the B is 0. The A is 2. The B is missing, so it's a 0. The C is really a negative 128. So here we go. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. I apologize again, you gotta listen to my voice for that. Now, the opposite of 0 is still just a 0. 0 squared, well, that's just gonna be 0. 4 times 2 times a negative 128. All over 2 times 2. I'm going to do a keep, change right here. And 0 plus this, now 4 times 2 is going to be 8. I know it's going to be all positive now. 8 times 128 is going to be 1024. Now, if I add 0, that's not going to change anything at all. So I don't need another step to do that. That's just going to be the square root of 1024 over 4. And the square root of that number is 32. So 0 plus 32 is 32. Divided by 4 would be 8. 0 minus 32 would be negative 32. Negative 32 divided by 4 would be negative 8. So today's worksheet is going to be the quadratic formula. And it's going to have the quadratic formula on the top of the page for you so that you can remember it. You should be writing it down for every single problem. The answer key is in Schoology, and I would like to do the first problem from the worksheet with you. There isn't a formative today, so we can take the time to do this one together. I've got the equation, I've got ABC, and then up on the top of the paper, that's why they've got that quadratic formula, so we can fill in the spaces that we need. In number 1, the A is actually a 1, the B is 9, the C is 14. So I've got my equation right there. I'm going to do it over here on the left side of the screen instead of right underneath that, but x equals the opposite of b will be a negative 9, plus or minus the square root of 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 14 all over 2 times 1. 9 squared is 81, minus 4 times 14 is going to be 56. And 2 times 1 is 2. 81 minus 56 is 25. I hope that you're noticing that every time today we're giving you stuff that works out so nicely for the square root. Every time it's going to be a nice whole number answer. So the square root of 25 is 5. So negative 9 plus 5 would be negative 4 divided by 2. That's going to be negative 2. Negative 9 minus 5 would be negative 14. Divided by 2 would be negative 7. So there are our 2 answers in the first problem. If you need any help with this, or if you're struggling with this, please reach out to me, but know that we're spending several more days on this.